Welcome to Trends with Benefits, a podcast by VanEck with a forward-looking perspective. We explore new ways of thinking about the markets, investing, work, and life. Here's your host, Ed Lopez.
I'm Ed Lopez, and this is Trends with Benefits, and I'm here with Tyrone Ross. Thank you for joining me, Tyrone.
Thank you so much for having me.
Tyrone's a financial consultant, early stage startup advisor, entrepreneur,
All of that.
athlete, recognized by Investment News as 40 under 40,
Yeah.
wealthmanagement.com as a top 10 advisor set to change the industry.
Yeah.
It's amazing. As I prep for our podcast, and we just met today in person.
Yeah.
I stalked you on social media. One thing I got from your LinkedIn post and in your description, something you wrote stood out to me, which was, I'm working to build what I see as the future of financial services, aiming to break the traditional mold.
Yeah.
What did that really mean to you?
To me, it means truly to be more inclusive in a lot of ways. One, technology is allowing more people to become investors for the first time. I always say this is the best time in history to be an investor. Never been cheaper, never been faster, more accessible. The other part is making sure that people understand that our industry has to lead what I believe is the change, which is the financial literacy crisis in this country. Financial advisors, the financial services industry have to go first. We have to put it on our back, and we have to change it. Those of us like myself that grew up in an unbanked and a financially illiterate home have to go first. Second thing. Third thing, and probably most importantly, is for people to understand that I believe, without a doubt, in 10 years, the financial services industry will be the most beloved industry in the world. Why? For the first two things that I said before, is that it's really incumbent upon us now to move in to making sure that people understand that we're accessible, that we're human, that we want to share our stories, but more importantly, that we care about all people, regardless of zip code, regardless of socioeconomic status, regardless of any of that. You deserve quality financial education and help, and I want to be at the forefront of that.
That's great. And right now, you are a financial consultant. You're dealing with investors, entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about your practice, and then I'd like to go back and talk about how you got there and how you became a financial consultant.
Yeah, it's a really circuitous route. We can get into that. So right now, my practice is really evolved around two things. One, early stage startup advising, very early, two founders with an idea, right, and really want to get it off the ground. I found that it's a great area for financial advisors to add value, and there was really no one there because you quote unquote can't make money. The other part is crypto. I've gone all in on crypto. I've learned and was forced to learn about Bitcoin from a friend of mine in 2015. And at that time I was at Merrill Lynch. A couple of things you don't do at Merrill. You don't have young clients and you don't talk about crypto at the time. So I knew that if I was going to leverage this, I would have to go independent at some point. Did that in 2017. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go all in on crypto. I'm going to bet on myself. I'm going to learn as much as I can about it. And those two things kind of go together because I learned as I started to delve into the startup world, they all owned it, right? So I've never pitched crypto a day in my life. Every single one of my clients already owned it. And they're just like, you better figure it out or we'll fire you. So I kind of built my practice around it and my passion for it. And that's kind of what it is now. They're young, they're tech driven. They never wanted to be in a corner office drinking stale coffee out of a styrofoam cup, right? And then I just realized, again, just like most industries, financial services changed forever with the invention of the iPhone, right? So you got to think about it. The oldest millennials now are 37, 38, right? The iPhone, you go back 11 years, they grew up with this technology. So they do everything from their phones. So what I realized was they're like, well, I want your advice. I don't want your pie charts. I don't want any of that stuff. I want your advice. And I want it on, my terms because the thing is like people come to advice when they have life events. What's happening at 30 years old? Kids, house, right? Student loan debt, all these other things. And oh, by the way, here's this breakthrough technology that I've learned and grew up with, right? Bitcoin kind of around the same thing, 08, 09. So it's been a part of their lexicon growing up. So to have an advisor that understands it and open to talking about it, it just kind of opened the floodgates for me. So I'm like, this works.
Yeah, totally. I think you've had a great niche, one with entrepreneurs, because I remember I started out my career as a financial advisor, very short stint.
Smart man.
But I remember trying to talk to entrepreneurs, and they were like, I'm all in on my business. I don't need any financial planning help. I don't need any of that.
Right.
But you found a little niche there working with them.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Entrepreneurs are very, like I could do it myself. They're gritty, but what you realize, and my mentor says this, is there comes a point in your life where you start giving up your time for money, and you want to use the money to get your time back, no matter who you are. And entrepreneurs, if they're successful, cross that barrier. They come to that fork in the road very early, right? Earlier than most, if they have some success, and then they start to realize, okay, well, I've made all this money. Now what do I do, right? And then you realize, it's like, okay, well, I have this type of stock and this type of stock. I don't know what to do. And then there's tax implications. When do I exercise, right? When do I actually sell some of this stuff? So, I have a client that his company was bought by Microsoft. So now it's startup stock. Now he has Microsoft stock. But what does this all mean? So private shares, public shares. So there's a lot of value there to add. But for me, it was just a situation where I'm like, well, if you look at it and you really listen to them, which we should do as advisors, just sit and listen. You ask questions they didn't think to ask or think about, and then you can answer them too.
Right.
Have you thought about this? And then you can answer it. And like, oh, maybe I do need a financial advisor.
And showing your value.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Well, how did you get there? How did you become a financial consultant? And were you always interested in investing? And is that what brought you into the industry?
So I'm actually not supposed to be here. I was 26 years old and didn't know the stock market existed. Right? I literally did not know nothing. I knew nothing about anything when it came to money. And I had a professor in graduate school, and he's like, you'd be great on Wall Street. And I'm like, doing what? I don't even know what you're talking about. And I literally didn't know. So I started out in an investor relations firm doing IR and PR. I did communications in undergrad and in graduate school. So that's kind of where the PR part came in. I had to take baby steps into the investor relations part because I knew nothing about stocks, bonds, any of that, buy side, sell side. I'm like, what is all of this stuff? And literally had to learn on the fly. And then had a mentor who worked at Lehman. He was like, he mentioned the retail side. I'm like, well, what's the retail side? So it was this step to get to where I am now. And then got licensed at a little chop shop, cold calling, $600, $700 a day.
Smile and dial.
Yes, literally all day, $600, $700 a day. Got my 63, learned to pitch stock and do all that stuff. Then I start hearing all this rambling about a wirehouse. What's a wirehouse? So I start hearing about your Merrills and your Morgan Stanleys and all these other things. And again, eventually ended up at Merrill, where I actually learned about financial planning and financial advisor from my current, mentor. And I was like, okay, this is something that I could do. But what I realized was, as a black man, I was never going to have the success that others had. It just wasn't going to happen. Tough realization. You can't generalize. You're completely against the 8 ball if you come from where I come from, because I didn't have the pedigree. Wasn't Ivy League. I didn't go to Wharton. And then also what you realize is that there's so many things stacked against you that if I didn't specialize and or bet on myself, that I wasn't gonna do that, because the industry makes sure that you aren't yourself. But if I was able to get away from the wirehouse and go independent to be myself, now I'm sitting here with you.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that if I'm at Merrill Lynch. That's a fact. I don't care how much success I had.
You're controlling your messages and your story.
There was no way this was going to be a reality. So once I was able to tell my story and all I've endured to get here, then it became, I morphed from being an advisor to a consultant, because now I can speak to so many other things, right? And then I realized that, again, it's essentially the same thing, but just a change in word gets people to open up more to what it is that you do. I don't only consult on finances, right? I consult on life. I consult on experiences.
So that's where that comes from. I heard you talk about changing that description from financial advisor to financial consultant, but I wasn't exactly sure why you preferred financial consultant. But now I get it.
That's why, right? Because if you really get, which we don't do, this industry does a horrible job of getting proximate. When you talk to people, they don't like financial advisors, right? And then the other things, what is it? Is it an advisor with an OR? Is it an advisor with an ER?
Yeah.
Right? And then also, what do you guys do? Right? No one knows.
Yeah.
What does a financial advisor do? Is it investment management? Is it portfolio construction? Is it life planning? Is it what is it? what do you guys do? We have to do a better job of communicating that. Everything I've learned about money, or I know about money, I've learned in the last 14 years, right? So I went literally most of my life not really understanding what money was, how it works, how the financial system works. So my first memories of money is scarcity, right? It was that, and that scarcity mindset almost brings a trauma and PTSD that you have to fight, right? So anyone will tell you, my clients will tell you, when I talk about money, I can't let go of the fact that I want to make sure that your basics are taken care of, because I know what it's like to say, okay, well, we don't live here anymore, repeatedly, right? I can't take you to my house, where I grew up. I would have to take you to 9 different places.
Where did you grow up?
In New Jersey, right?
Okay.
So I was born in Edison, but we moved around a lot. So I'm anchored to, is the mortgage paid? Is the rent paid, right? What are your monthly expenses, right? I draw down on that because it's so important to me that that's taken care of, because again, you always have that scarcity mindset. The problem is, if you don't break that and heal, you can never allow abundance to come in once you actually learn about money. Perfect example, in any relationship where you don't learn how to love or how to care or express yourself, what do? You're abusive. So if I get money in this hand, I'm putting it in this hand to spend it. And that's kind of how it goes. You're never taught it's something I should keep. You're taught it's something I need to survive. Right? If I needed to eat, it's in, out. If I needed to pay, it's out, right? To pay to live, whatever. So it's never taught, okay, well, I don't ever have any left to think about, well, how do I keep some, right? So a lot of that is the part where people don't understand it. If you're living literally, and it's not even paycheck to paycheck, being able to live paycheck to paycheck is a blessing. That's a privilege, right? When you live day to day, right? And you have mouths to feed, and you're like my parents, where it's like, well, we have to feed them, but we have to drink hot water and go to bed. We can't stay up any longer. We're starving. They need to eat. And we also are stressed because we got to figure out how we're going to get the money that we need for the rent Friday that's due. And we've been out of money for the last 2 weeks. So when these are the things that scar the parents, it scars the children. You can't protect your children from that life. My mother tried her hardest, but when they weren't home and the landlord's banging on the door and I'm answering, he goes, you got everything, you got 2 minutes to get everything you can in here and get out, or I'm calling the sheriffs, and you're the only one home and no one's there. That sticks with you, right? When I start to learn about money, my whole thing is, right, a stock, a bond, like I can hold this, a return, right? What's an APR? What is an interest rate, right? So your mind starts to shift in, oh my God, this whole world I didn't even know existed. But in order to get there, you have to break that cycle of what you've been through and now begin to accept, right? Acceptance of where you came from, but now acceptance is, my life is okay. I have a little extra to do things and put money into the market. And I think that's the one thing that I try and get people to understand. If you talk to that demographic, the 50 million working poor in this country, they hoard money because of that scarcity. But if I give it to you, and then wait, you're gonna put it in this stock, and then this stock can go to zero, and it can't, there's no financial advisor anywhere that can get people to relate to that. There are people that I know that will never put money in the stock market. There's a reason why Black people, Caribbean people, most people, literally money under the mattress, because if I see it, I can go touch it.
Right.
I'm not putting it in the bank. They're gonna take some. So and again, I can talk about this for the next whatever, but that's what it means to me. And then I realized that I had a responsibility to those people to get them to understand it's okay. You have to break that. Let me help you help yourself. And these are the things that I'm so passionate about, because I can speak to it because I'm from it.
Right. So it's obviously influenced your philanthropy.
Yes, 100%.
Let's talk about some of that.
Yeah.
So talk about what you're really passionate about today. And you know, we're here at the Inside ETFs conference, and your view on conferences as well.
Yeah. I don't want any kid to experience what I experienced. I don't want any kid to be hungry. I don't want any family to struggle. I passed a man last night walking back from the hotel, and he had all his things with him and was just exhausted from life taking him through it. That is my responsibility, to make sure that those people are cared for. Me, I can't speak for anybody else. I am here for that reason. I am at this conference and any other conference that I go to shed light on those people. I have an obligation to them. and you brought me here. I don't want to talk about you have a million people to talk about whatever it is that you want to talk about, but you're bringing me here to get to shed light on those people. Shame on me if I leave here and the 20% of kids in Broward County, right, that are living in poverty, or the 3,000 kids at any month that's in foster care. That is a disaster. That is a tragedy in this country where there's a man walking around worth $100 billion. And the thing is, I don't fault him. I don't have a problem with capitalism. That's not his responsibility. But those of us who come from the bottom, from nothing, it is our responsibility when we sit in places like this to make sure people like that understand what we've gone through to sit next to you. I've paid with my skin, right? When you stand next to people and you can smell the hunger on their breath, or you can see that people are so stressed out from life literally beating them down, and all they want is a Coke.
When did you come to this realization that was so passionate for you that you just decided, I'm going to really focus on this?
I've been through it. I've watched my parents go through it. So I can't now get here. That, again, that's the juxtaposition of being in this business. You're surrounded by so much, but you come from nothing. You experience things that people literally will never experience in their life. People wear shoes that are worth more than, right, that are 3-4 times people's monthly rent. When you experience that, it draws you in. And my mother always taught me, don't you ever pass people in need, because that could be you. And if I'm in need or we're in need, I don't ever want anybody to pass me and say, oh, well, is he Jewish? I'm not helping him. Oh, he didn't go to Harvard. He's not Ivy League. Oh, he's a Democrat. I'm not. I'm Republican, right? Or I work on Wall Street. You don't ever pass people in need, ever. If you ever see someone in need, that person was placed there for a reason. And if you pass them, and I see it all the time, so traveling around the country, every large city you go to, there's literally people laying on concrete and people are passing them like an exam. Like, that can't be it. It's humanity more than anything, right? So I just believe in humanity. I believe in people pushing each other to be great. And so long, and again, it's not everybody's cause. Some people literally just need to sprinkle the money down. I'm all right with that. Be the money tree. It's really important that we understand the power of giving, the power of humanity, the power of gratitude. And it starts with me. I can't wait for anybody else anymore. I have to make sure these kids are fed. I have to make sure these foster children who don't even know what their birthday is, that they can have a birthday and they celebrate their birthday, right? We take that for granted. We know when our birthday is, we celebrate. Imagine a child that has been up and down and through the system and don't even know this is the day you should be celebrated and loved on, right? And then the people that are doing this work, the real work of working with these kids and restoring them and building them back up, they're the ones that should be at this conference speaking, not us, patting each other on the back about 40 under 40. Who cares? I don't care about that. All of that stuff is Barron's, 40 under 40, all these other things is a larger platform to scream into the megaphone that these people need us.
Right.
And that's my responsibility. Me. I can't speak for anybody else, but if you're from it, you can talk to it, and we have a responsibility to scream about it. This way the industry changes. If we don't, we are complicit. Not Bezos, not the government, those of us that get here and forget where we came from.
And you set something up with the conference, this conference specifically, right?
Yes. Yeah. So we did something. We partnered with the Voices of Children for Broward County, an organization that literally, like, their operating revenue is $400,000 a year. 2 women who literally work with foster children. They work from home. They have no office. They borrow an office in the courthouse locally. And what they do is literally take these kids, do deep forensics to help them find out their birthdays. They build these things called sunshine boxes to help them celebrate their birthdays. But the most heartbreaking thing is that inside of these boxes, they put the bare necessities of life: toothbrushes, socks, underwear. That's how these kids are celebrating their birthdays, with the basic needs. Could you imagine? And people are planning their next vacation. Right. And these kids are getting the basics, and they build the boxes, they decorate them, and they give them to the kids. And what they also try to do is they'll take them to the beach for the first time. They'll take them to a Heat game. They'll take them to Disney World, right? So things they would have never experienced. So we partner with them to undergird them, to support them. And it is my responsibility, why I am here, to shake the trees. And I say, if you are here on Wednesday, and when I walk out on that stage, I am literally going to burn the place down with passion for those children.
There's a certain amount of personal responsibility, I think, that you bring onto yourself, and that you are showing as an example for other financial advisors that they can take on themselves. You don't have to wait around for the government to change rules or give money out. You just go do it. how do financial advisors, how would you recommend financial advisors do that in their own city? If they're not going to a conference or whatever, how do they get involved? How do they?
Everyone who follows me on Twitter will know what they can literally, if they're watching this, they're going to say it, right? We know what Tyrone's going to say is get proximate. Just simply go to the schools that you don't want your children to go to, drive through the other side of town, have conversations with people who are outside of your bubble and influence and not part of the clubs that you were in college or whatever. And I feel like if advisors do that, it'll help them understand the plight of people who they don't work with, right? And just really unique ways to add value. But I think one of the things that needs to happen is that to get in tune with your personal story, right? And we all have struggle. It may not be financial or it may not be our background, but that's really it. Just really getting proximate to people, having conversations. And when you really hear the stories of what, and maybe some of your colleagues, right? What they go through, it'll really change your perspective on life and how you actually give advice.
And when they do that, what do you think is more important, money or time?
Great question. I think a lot of that is dependent upon the individual. I believe time is, because I've seen it. Problem is, what do I ever want to tell you? I don't have the time.
Right.
All right, fine. Money can only go so far. Because here's the thing, and I say this all the time. If I give you money and I walk away from you, I didn't put anything in you. So that mother that's strung out, right? And I gave you this example. That mother that's strung out on heroin, and I gave her money because she needed to do whatever. And I didn't put anything in her. There's a left or a right she can make when she leaves the house. She can go to the right and go get food and come back and feed those kids. So now those kids can get educated. She can make that left and she can go see the dope man. I have a responsibility. We all do, to make sure that we put something in you so that when we give you that money, you can use it for good. So time spent, I would say, is very important. But I think they go hand in hand. Time is the most valuable currency in the world, right? But you give what you can of it. 5 minutes with somebody will change their life. They just need to know that you cared enough to stop.
Hearing you talk is very inspirational, and seeing you on other podcasts as well. And something that I get from you is a very positive attitude.
Yeah.
And you've talked past about your Olympic aspirations and how tough it was for you to not meet that goal.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to ask you, because I think people have their own struggles too in terms of goals or work life or whatever, and might get down on themselves.
Mm-hmm.
How do you stay positive?
It's hard. I stay positive by realizing that I went through all of that to give. The more I give, the happier I get. When you start to realize that I'm broken, right? My dream is never going to come true, and that breaks my heart. It breaks my heart every day. I get sad at least once a day. I put everything into that. And my dream is never going to come true, and that's terrible. It's a pain I can't describe. But what I realized after I had the lowest point in my life in 2012, where I was going to commit suicide, because I was like, what am I living for? In 2013, I said, every day I'm done living for my resume, I'm going to live for my legacy. And every day I try and literally exhaust how much I can possibly give. And I'm so happy. But I realize my brokenness, all that I've gone through, all of the struggle in my life, I've never had life go downhill. And it's starting to look like it might right now. It's been so uphill, so hard. It's been such a struggle. But the minute I decided I'm gonna take the focus off of me and pour into somebody else, the world has opened up for me. So what you start to realize is that you don't go through those experiences for you. You go through them for other people. And then when I decided that I no longer care about all of these things that the industry want me to care about, I care about when I'm gone, that somebody walks into my funeral and say, my life is better because he breathed air. If he never lived, I don't do this. That's all I care about now. And when I walk into, I don't care if I sit next to you on a plane or you on the elevator with me for 2 minutes. When I walk off that elevator, you got to feel like, whoa, there was an energy to just walk in here to change me. So I just focus on give. And the other thing is this: humans love distractions, cell phones, social media, all these, we love distractions. When you give, you're distracted. The focus is off of my brokenness, off of my lack, because I'm focused on somebody else's. You can't escape it. That's the duality of who we are as humans. But I realize the more I give, the more I pour into others, it helps me heal, and I'm realizing my purpose. So I'm learning now that that didn't happen for me because it wasn't supposed to, and it hurts to say that, but, and I was just saying, and I was just saying it last night, is that the Olympics was too small. It was too small. We think so small as human beings, but God said, I got this bigger thing for you to do, and you don't even need that. Now watch me put you in these rooms with powerful people. Go influence them. Use your brokenness, and through that, I'll heal you. So that's kind of what it is. I just focus on giving the other people, and it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy, but I would just encourage anybody that's going through a hard time, just persevere, endure, just stay in it. And there's a point where, as an athlete, this is why I say athletes are super successful, because there's a point where pain and your passion meet. And if you stay in that pain and stay in it and stay in it and stay in it and stay in it, eventually it's that friction starts to birth a new you. It fortifies you. It gives you new direction. And anybody who's been successful, they'll tell you their greatest success have come out of that pain. But you got to stay in it long enough, right? And know that people care. And that morning when I woke up and I'm like, I want to die, and I was comfortable with it. I was okay with ending my life. There was no 800 number I was going to dial. I couldn't go back to my family because they would have been upset and fearful. But what I realized in that moment was all that I have gone through, all the pain that I've endured. If I stand on this curb and I don't throw myself in front of this bus, if I endure, if I embrace all of the brokenness in this moment, what comes out of it is going to be something not only changes my life, but changes other people. So when people are at that point, please, 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 just stay in it, endure, just stay strong. You're going through it for a reason. And when you get out of it, the sun will shine, right? And you'll be in a better place, but you just have to stay in there and endure. And if you do that and just give a lot of that away, you'll heal, and the world will open up for you.
This is Trends with Benefits. So I'm going to ask you a few different trends or fads.
Oh.
And you can you can explain your answer or not.
Yeah.
You can make it quick. All right. Fake meat, trend or fad?
Trend.
Paper straws, trend or fad?
Oh, I hope they're fad. I hate paper straws.
Blockchain, trend or fad?
Blockchain is the biggest fad. We need to stop this. It's the biggest marketing term ever. Oh, I can't stand it. It's just marketing. It's Bitcoin, blockchain, and nothing else. Let's stop. Ethereum too, but anyway.
The keto diet, trend or fad?
Ooh, it's a trend. There needs to be more research on it, but there is a trend there, and some of the data shows that there is some benefits there, but micro doses of keto is going to help a lot of people.
I thought you might have some insight on that as an athlete. All right, and then the serious question, one big trend. What's one big trend you see playing out over the next year or several years?
Ooh, one big trend. I believe that there will be a big change in how financial advisors run their practices. Our industry is severely ripe for disruption, and we're getting it from all angles. So a couple things. One, I think financial advisors are going to be forced to specialize, right? Or they're either going to, be driven out of the business. They're going to be forced to specialize. And also, I think AUM is going to die. I don't think AUM survives.
What do you mean by that?
Unless it means, are you merciful? But because fees are going to zero.
Yeah.
Vanguard is after financial planning fees to get that. Like, everything's going to zero. What's happening is this, right? There's a couple $1 trillion or whatever that has to transfer generations or whatever. Younger clients don't want to pay AUM. And there's all these excuses that people will tell you why they don't want to pay AUM, right? And if you look at it, it's not inherently, if you look at when it was built and what it was for, and again, baby boomers now having all of the assets, sure, it makes a ton of sense for them, on retirement assets. And a lot of that was build up most of this business. But as the business starts to become decoupled, right? And hourly makes more sense, right? Or some type of retainer makes more sense. And these services are a la carte, AUM won't make sense anymore. And advisors also won't have custody, right? As crypto starts to really, and again, it's less about crypto as overall, but what it's going to mean for traditional financial services, custody will be taken away from the advisor, and they'll truly be, so here's the other thing, the value of advice will go up, right? A lot, because you'll have to specialize. But all of the financial machinery that goes on behind the scenes, fees are going to come to zero. AUM is going to disappear for advisors anyway. And there'll be a new structure of how they'll work with clients moving forward.
A new business model for how they'll work.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I've seen it in my own practice, but I'm trying to let advisors know, get ready, it's coming. But they fight me on it. I get it.
Well, this has been great. How do people find you?
Best place to find me is on Twitter, at TR401. And probably I'm doing a lot more on Instagram now. It's Tyron, Tyrun 401. But yeah, Twitter is where I spend my life. So if you find me on Twitter, you'll probably be linked out to everything else that I do.
Fantastic. Tyrone, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you. Thank you for having me.